Hi and welcome to this Northcliffe High School video on number patterns. It's an introduction for grade 9. So, what are number patterns? Well, Wikipedia defines number pattern as a pattern or sequence in a series of numbers. This pattern establishes a common relationship between all numbers in the pattern. In other words, how I get from the first term to the second term and the second term to the third term, there's a specific relationship there. There are 4 different ways of representing number patterns. The first way is with diagrams. Here on the right hand side you can see term 1, term 2 and term 3, and they're pictures with matches, and you count the matchsticks. The second way is with actual numbers, and so you can see how 4 examples here: 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 6, 10, 16, 24, 1, 3, 9, 27, 1, negative 2, 4, negative 8, 16. They're showing you the number patterns just as numbers. The third way is writing the English rules. So in other words, starting at 1 and then adding consecutive natural numbers, or starting at 4 and adding consecutive odd numbers, starting with 3. And the fourth way we can do it is mathematical rules or formulae. And here you have Tn equals 3n plus 2, or Tn equals n squared, and a whole lot of different other ways. There are 2 important things, and we're going to use example 1 to highlight them. 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. is our pattern. Now, the term number, when we talk about the term number, we're talking about the position in the sequence. In other words, the number 2 is my first term, the number 4 is my second term, the number 6 is my third term, and the number 8 is my fourth term. And so term number is the position in the sequence. The term value is the value of a certain term in the sequence. So my first term is 2, my second term is 4, my third term is 6, and my fourth term is 8. So let's look at 2 worked examples. I'm going to carry on with example 1. So 1.1, write down the rule for the above pattern. So there's a specific structure that we use, where it starts and how do I get from one term to another. That's how we break it down. So let's look at where it starts. It's very simple. We write down starting at, and this example starts at 2, so it's starting at 2, then comma, and now we write the second part. How do I get from one term to another? So let's have a look. If I go from term 1 to term 2, I add 2. If I go from term 2 to term 3, I add 2. Term 3 to term 4, I add 2. And so I'm going and adding 2 for each term. Let's write it down. Add 2 to the current term to get the value for the next term. Question 1.1, done. Let's look at 1.2. Write down the next 3 terms in the sequence. So this is our sequence. Now, we said that we're adding 2 for each next term. So 8 plus 2 gives me 10. 10 plus 2 gives me 12. And 12 plus 2 gives me 14. And so there I've written down the next 3 terms in the sequence. Example 2. 1, 3, 7, 13, 21. Now this is a little bit more tricky than example 1. Anyway, let's have a look. 2.1, write down the rule for the above pattern. And again, our structure is the same, where it starts and how do I get from one term to another. Let's look at the first part, where it starts. Well, starting at 1, comma, and then we do the second part. How do I get from one term to another? Let's have a look. If I go from term 1 to term 2, I add 2. If I go from term 2 to term 3, which is 3 to 7, I add 4. If I go from term 3 to term 4, which is 7 to 13, I add 6. And then from 13 to 21, I add 8. Can you see that I'm adding 2, then 4, then 6, then 8? Those are even numbers. The first one I'm adding 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. Let's write that down. Add consecutive even numbers to get the value of the next term. I start at 1, and then I add consecutive even numbers to get the value of the next term. Plus 2, plus 4, plus 6, plus 8. 2.2. Write down the next 3 terms in the sequence. So there we have our sequence. Now we said we're increasing or adding by consecutive even numbers. So it's going to be 21 plus 10, which will give me 31. My next one will be plus 12, which will give me 43. And my last one will be plus 14, which will give me 57. And so I've now written down the next 3 terms in my sequence. Some helpful hints when trying to figure out patterns. Firstly, always write down the difference between the terms as I did in example 2. Secondly, if the difference isn't constant, then look for a pattern in the actual differences between the terms. If that doesn't work, you can also multiply or divide by numbers to get the next term. You don't only have to add or subtract. So thank you for watching Northcliffe High number patterns for grade 9. I hope the examples have been helpful.